You're listening to the Spring Break Money Coach School, a special series from the Wander Wealthy podcast. My name is Tess Wicks. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. I am so excited to welcome you to the Spring Break Money Coach School. This is a series of 13 episodes, which have been the most listened to and highly valued episodes from the Wander Wealthy podcast over the last 2 years. I have taken the time to make sure to put these episodes in a specific order for anyone who is either looking to refresh yourself on what's important about building a life-changing money coaching program, selling, marketing, and getting your money coaching business off of the ground and booked out, or for those who are brand new to the show and looking for some guidance. These are the episodes to listen to, and I would highly recommend, if you are not at the very first Spring Break Money Coach School episode in the series, scroll back on your podcast player and go start with the one that is sharing my story. That is the first one to tune into so you can see how it all goes down, what I'm all about, and what I bring as a money coach to this space. Now, while you're listening, just a little announcement. I am going on maternity leave in the fall of 2022, which means the Wealthy Coach Blueprint is not open for enrollment. So even if you hear me announce that in one of these episodes, I just want to let you know that we are not open for enrollment, but what you can do is get on the wait list for 2023 enrollment periods. In the meantime, I would definitely suggest for you to check out the pricing formula, which you can find at wanderwealthy.com/pricing. If you're struggling with pricing your services and not really sure what a package would look like and how you would price a coaching package, that is the guidebook, calculator, and little mini trainings that you need to get that all sorted out. Another way that we can quote unquote work together with a wink is by you getting access to the Client Attraction Content Matrix. This is a quick mini course that's going to teach you my secret sauce to creating content that converts. Whether you want to create TikToks or Instagram Reels, stories, posts, videos, even for YouTube or podcast episodes, even blog posts, this matrix is going to change your business. Because when it comes to creating content, you need to make sure that you're creating content that speaks to your audience and then gets them to turn into paying clients. So you can get access to that by heading to wanderwealthy.com/content. And if you want a very special deal, get your hands on the pricing formula first, and you might just get a very special discount to the matrix, as well as a special treat in between that teaches you all about my simple sales strategy. So wanderwealthy.com/pricing to get your hands on the formula, and wanderwealthy.com/content if you're just interested in the content matrix. And those are some ways that we can continue to work together over the next handful of months. Thanks again for tuning in to the Spring Break Money Coach School. Now, without further ado, let's get into this week's episode for this amazing series. Hello, my babes. Welcome back to another episode of the Wander Wealthy podcast. My name is Tess Wicks. I am your host, founder of Wander Wealthy, and your business coach for all of you aspiring, new, or I've been doing this for a couple months, but I'm super frustrated money coaches of the world. Today, I wanted to share a little solo show where I walk you through how I set up and organize my week to manage a full-time coaching business. And I really wanted to share this because this is something that I help my clients do as we step through the Wealthy Coach Blueprint. This is a big concern that I think a lot of people have is, how do I build a scalable coaching business? Is this even possible given my clients and the price that they're paying me, and how much time I even have on my hands, and how am I going to make this $1 million thing? That's something that we absolutely answer in the Wealthy Coach Blueprint. Even the first phase that you go through, the phase being the first kind of learning module. But there's also a piece where I walk through kind of the back end of everything. Once you've actually started figuring out who your ideal clients are, how to speak their language, how to attract them, and then they're signing up to work with you, you might be thinking, well, how am I going to do this for, a fully booked out roster. And I totally hear you. That was one of the biggest sticking points for me when I was thinking about taking my business full time, when I was thinking about moving abroad. And that was an even bigger thing that I was really worried about, was like, how am I going to work with people when I live 7 to 9 hours ahead of them in the day? Like, how am I going to do this? So not only am I going to share with you how I organize my week, but also how I do it with most of my clients living in an entirely different time zone. But for you, hopefully, and honestly, not hopefully, I really hope that you're able to actually travel a lot once you have your coaching business and you're running it full time. Up until that point, if you're still in the same time zone as most of your clients, then maybe your schedule is going to be even easier to manage than mine has been. But I also want to I want to paint the picture for you and give you that inspiration that you absolutely can do this while traveling, exploring the world, and potentially choosing to live a portion of your life or a portion of your year in a different time zone. So hopefully you can see that it is possible and you can be inspired and maybe even motivated to book that flight once everything calms down in the world. Hopefully by the time this goes live, everything has calmed down in the world, but we shall see. So let's just get started with the way that I plan my week. And I think that's the most important, is if you don't have a plan, if you don't plan your day before the day begins, your day's going to fall apart. And I'll be honest, your day might even still fall apart with a plan, but at least you had the bones in place. So even before I get to like the weekly planning stage, even before that, I lay down this foundation. And the foundation that I have enacted that has worked really well for me, and I always recommend people, especially when they're in the position to have to not only create in their business, but also manage, the day-to-day of their business, this type of planning and just boundaries that they put in place with their calendar tends to work very, very well. So there's two main boundaries that I enact with my calendar just as a whole that work really well for me, even before I get into the like scheduling bit and, weekly planning scenario. And that is, first and foremost, I enact this little time management hack, if you will, called Maker Manager Time. And this was something that my very first business coach introduced me to. And it was like this article written by, I believe, some sort of computer science person, like a developer of some sort. And they talked about how they needed to do this Maker Manager Time because when you are, let's just say they were like a website developer. When you're a developer, you have to spend so much time really like in the zone, kind of pulling things together and doing all the coding and whatnot. But then you have to spend, another part of your time managing your calendar, dealing with meetings, doing all of that other stuff. And so the way that they had actually, even just like as a boundary put in place, was this Maker Manager Time. Now, the way that I think most people like to do this is typically in the early morning or in the first half of the day, they're a lot more creative minded, so to speak. They're a lot more open to, fresh ideas are just kind of coming out of them, and they haven't gotten bogged down quite yet on the minutia of work. And so what most people will do is they reserve the morning or between 8 a.m. and noon for maker time. And maker time is ultimately all of that creative energy. So in your coaching business, what you're mostly going to be doing during maker time is most likely content planning. So whether you have a podcast, a blog, a YouTube channel, which by all means, you do not need to have a successful coaching business. But if you're at that point, you might be planning out your content for the rest of the month. And then you might be outlining your content. And then you might be filling in the gaps of your content. And then you might actually be recording your content. And so right now, it is the morning part for me. Actually, I don't start my day until about 10 or 11 in the morning because I work late into the evening, but still the first half of my day is always maker time. And so right now it's 12:30, but this is my maker time. And so things that you really have to give a lot of creative energy to, typically for most people, they do better with it in the morning. Now, a different way you might go about this is actually saving and reserving all of your creative work for like really, really late in the evening. And there's a ton of people who work best between the hours of, I don't know, like 8 p.m. and 2 in the morning. Now, that's obviously not sustainable for most people. I think most people live their lives where they work a regular like 8 to 5. And also, by the way, you can take this and apply it even if you only work 4 hours a day. That's totally fine. You can absolutely still do maker manager time with a different schedule and a different time frame. But for the most part, people work like 8 to 5. And so they do the morning where it's the creative energy maker time, and then the afternoon/evening manager time. Again, there are exceptions. Some people, and even I am this type of person, it just isn't sustainable for me anymore, where I used to do all of my creative work like between the hours of 7 p.m. and 2 in the morning, because that's just when I got that jolt of energy. So most of my managerial work would be during the day. And then my creative, like where I would go ham on doing my website, which, now thinking back, I'm like, what a waste of time. I should have been creating content that converts and attracts ideal clients, but I digress. But I would spend so much of my more creative, energetic time in the evening. And I do know there's a lot of people who like that. And so they actually want to get all the like managerial kind of tasks that need to be done but don't require a ton of thought. They want to get that done first and earlier in the day, and then they'll take a huge break and then they'll start working and do more of the creative work. So that can totally work too. But essentially, you just want to kind of segment your day so that you have a good chunk of the day devoted to that maker kind of task. So the creation, the design elements, what are my graphics going to look like if you're getting that deep into the type of content that you're putting out. And then the evening more devoted to, or the afternoon more devoted to calls, email management, billing, bookkeeping, task management, and kind of managing your calendar or your CRM dashboard or whatever that looks like. Some other maker tasks could also be if you are developing out a program for your clients to go through in concert with your coaching. You can absolutely be developing the content of that program or developing the worksheets, creating a budget even, which I know, for probably most normal people, they think like creating a budget, that seems like a managerial task. But for people who are more, they love budgets, that's something where you're like, yes, I'm going to do that. And it's going to be really creative and I'm going to make sure it all flows together. And so I got you. I get it. I get you. I'm the same type of person. So I want to do all that creativity work, even if the typical person wouldn't think like the number stuff is necessarily super creative. I want to do that during my maker time as well because I'm exerting a lot of energy. Now, there's also types of people who would actually just switch this. They would flip it because actually in the morning, they're better at doing some of the managerial work and they actually get their jolts of energy in the afternoon. I don't know a lot of people who are like this. And I'm not talking about those late night people where they take a big break and then they come back super rejuvenated and ready to do the creative work. I'm saying like, if you are a traditional 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. type of person and you do all your managerial work in the morning and then you switch to creative work, that typically doesn't work for many people. But if you are unique, that could work for you. So if you're noticing the regular form, the maker and then the manager doesn't work for you, then flop it and go manager, then maker. But that early morning work typically, or the maker work, is that more creative work. And basically you just want that to be when your creative energy is at its peak. Then we go into, and my typical go-to is in the afternoon, but for me it literally is the evening because of my schedule being adjusted. But for me in the evening, that's my managerial work. And so that's the stuff where I have my meetings, I'm doing the email stuff, I'm doing the bookkeeping, all the back end work, all the moving pieces around. I might actually be posting the content then. I might actually be scheduling things. Anything that, it doesn't require me to get into deep thought or creative juiciness, I'm going to reserve that for the afternoon. Now, here's the key piece why this is so important. We know, and if you don't know, then now you're going to learn that task switching is really, really hard on the brain. Like when you get interrupted, you're in the middle of something, you get interrupted, that can cause kind of this 15-minute leg of interruption for you. Even if you get right back to your task, your brain is kind of computing everything that happened and trying to digest that. So it's really hard to get back into the zone. And so especially for people who have to focus on creative work, like writing a blog post or outlining a podcast script or even editing a video or something, you'll notice that when you get interrupted, it really throws you off. And so task switching can be very difficult. What's even more difficult is switching tasks between creative energy work and managerial energy work. And so if you notice yourself, writing blog posts and then immediately going and, finding the graphics to go with it and then uploading it or scheduling it, you'll kind of start to notice that type of approach to creating content can feel really draining. So same thing with if you're only focused on social media and you're focused on like creating content for it, if you do it so that just the day of you create the content and then you go through and like edit the photo and then you post the content and then you have to go on and kind of spread and tag people or, send people the content or whatever it is that your process is, that can feel really draining. And so then it feels like this whole content creation thing is so unsustainable. But it's unsustainable because you aren't actually managing your energy. And this is the funny piece, is a lot of people, think about business, especially after you've been doing it for a while and you're feeling a little bit burnt out, you start to fear burnout and you start to think, I don't want to have to work harder and harder and harder. I'm going to burn out entirely because right now I'm already feeling a little bit frayed. But the reality of that is you probably just don't have a good energy management system. It's not that you're being bad at time management, that you're not being the most productive. And maybe you're not being the most productive, and that is true because you're not managing your energy well. So enacting this maker-manager time can actually really help you with energy management because you're separating two different styles and approaches to getting work done. You're reserving all the kind of easy, brainless, minutia stuff for the second half of the day. And it's not all brainless, right? Like we have coaching calls where we do want to be there and be present, and that's where you want to make sure you're putting in buffers, and I'm going to get to that too. But when it comes to just like the check this box, okay, then do this, you can actually separate that from the creative work. And so that gets me into the other part of how I manage my week with a full-time book of coaching clients. So the next thing that I'll do, knowing that initial boundary of, okay, the first half of my day is dedicated to creation. The second half of my day is dedicated to managerial work and meetings. Then I'll go in and I'll actually start to theme my days of the week. So Mondays and Tuesdays, well, let me back up. If we're just talking about the maker part of the week, I actually theme them differently than the managerial part of the week. And technically, the themes are entirely different, but I also break it down differently. So let me do the maker times of the week. Mondays for me are dedicated to content brainstorming and content dumping. And so that's where I'm just getting all of my new ideas that I've basically been kind of like priming. So they're really juicy from the weekend and that time off. I get them out on paper and I start outlining what the content's going to look like for the rest of the week when it comes to my social content, for the rest of the month when it comes to my podcast content. And I just start getting that down on paper, and it's a big old brain dump. And if I've already done the brain dump, because I also do this on Friday mornings, if I've already done the brain dump, then it's time to outline, and it's time to fill in the gaps. So just however I'm, proceeding, wherever I'm at in the content creation process, that's where I'm going to focus on Mondays. Like I said, I also do this on Fridays. So Fridays, after, a full week of getting all the work done and kind of focusing on other things during the middle part of the week, it's also a good time for me to just kind of brain dump it all out. So what are the questions I've been asked this week from ideal clients, from my audience, from my actual clients, and kind of getting all that material down. And again, depending on what I did Monday, then I'll take that next step on Friday. So if I brain dumped content on Monday, then I'll start outlining it on Friday. If I outlined it on Monday, I'll start filling in the gaps on Friday. If I filled in the gaps on Monday, I'll do the recordings on Friday. So it just depends where I'm at. And obviously there's, it doesn't always go perfectly, but the point is having a plan, having some sort of boundaries in place. Now, what do I do on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday? It definitely depends on what's happening in the moment. Right now, I'm still building out the Wealthy Coach Blueprint and making sure that all the content is really great. I'm recording the lessons, I'm writing the lessons, I'm creating really helpful worksheets. And so for the most part, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday are dedicated to the content build out. If I notice there are some things that I need to update, like on my website or on my profiles or something like that, I might also do that on a Monday, I keep starting with Monday because that's the start of the week, on a Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. And then some other things I might do in the earlier part of my day on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is also continued learning. So I'm always regularly reinvesting in myself and my knowledge, whether it's business building ideas or work or, just really more so learning about the foundations of building a business and running it sustainably, scalably, and profitably. I'll focus on that. If I'm more so, in the season of my year where I'm interested in learning more about the mindset work and the inner workings of the mind and how we think about money, as well as how we think about business and failure and managing our fears, I'll also kind of dive into that work. So I do reserve that inner part of the week also for learning, which makes the content creation part of the week reserved at the end even more juicy. So that's how I segment and theme my maker part of my days of the week. So Monday and Friday, content creation, brain dumping, all that good stuff. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, more content creation, but as it relates to, the paid content of my one-on-one client work and my programs and my own learning so that I can continue to infuse that type of content with really juicy stuff. Then we get to the second half of the day, which is the manager time. And I also theme these days, I just theme them a little bit differently. Like it's obviously not anything like the maker time, but it is also not the same rhythm as the maker time. So what I do in my manager part of the week is Mondays and Tuesdays are typically reserved for client work and client coaching calls. And so I'm going to be getting on the phone for the most part with my clients on Mondays and Tuesdays. I also have Friday afternoons for some of my clients, especially those who are in the Wealthy Coach Blueprint program. And we have a lot of our accountability checks on Friday afternoon. It's morning for them, but my Friday afternoon. The other things that I'll do is just a lot of like client logistical work or client dashboard updates and stuff. And so I'm just basically taking care of business. And I do still work and I have some clients from my money coaching business, entrepreneurs and individuals who have just kind of stuck along with me and are still working with me one-on-one. And so as I relate it to what I used to do before working with money coaches, when I was a money coach, a lot of these client days are also reserved for just checking in on them, making sure that they're the shared financial dashboard that we use in our coaching sessions, those are up to date, or if they have questions about them, I'll create a quick video for them to train them up on something. Literally like any of the, again, managerial work as it relates to specific clients, I will work through that and updating my client relationship manager, which I have all up in Asana. And that is something that I offer my Wealthy Coach Blueprint clients, the ones that are also becoming money coaches. And if this is something you're interested in, you get to see and peek inside of my CRM dashboard in Asana, which is a free platform. So it makes, staying up to date and on task with each of your clients super, super easy. But that's what I do on Monday, Tuesdays, and then I might do a little bit of a wrap up on Fridays as well. So what do I do on Wednesdays and Thursdays? Those afternoons are mostly reserved for talking to my team, reaching out and just having meetings with other fellow business owners in the world. And maybe it's collaborating with them on creating content for their programs, them creating content for my programs. Also, podcast interviews I reserve for Wednesdays and Thursday afternoons, and any other kind of meetings that don't revolve client work. Now, I still do sometimes have a client booking on these days. Again, we're not striving for perfection here. It's all about just having your boundaries in place. And sometimes a client can't meet with me on a Monday, Tuesday, or a Friday, and we just have to wiggle them in somewhere. And I'm flexible with that because, what's the point otherwise? This is my business. I get to do whatever I want. So that's pretty much what I take on. And then every single day, right around the midway point, that's when I'll dive into email. I will go into email and respond to things, send out emails. Like that's when I'm diving into my inbox. But really, your inbox is so often, and I shared this with a client recently, your inbox is such a distractor. Like for whatever reason, if a notification pops up, we think it's the most important thing that we need to do. So we go and we tackle that. But in reality, it's usually the least important thing. And so I always ask my clients to not check their email at least for the first 1 to 2 hours of their day, because you got to take care of yourself. If you don't take care of yourself and your business and focus on the highest leverage activity your business needs right now, which is 99% of the time not about responding to an email right away when you wake up, you're going to be so much better off. You're going to be so much further along because you know what is the highest leverage activity that I could be focusing on right now. You go in, you take care of that, and then you check your email, and therefore you don't keep pushing that activity off because, oh, there's a fire that I have to put out, or I need to respond to this person. And then again, that's the task switching problem. So this is why you should absolutely not have email notifications on your phone or on your computer, and just set times for you to actually check your email. So I typically check it in the mid part of my day while I'm going through the big task switching of, dropping the creative brain and going into the more managerial brain. That's a perfect time for me to go, okay, well, let's see what's on the agenda that my email is going to be calling me for. And then I might do that for 30 minutes to an hour, just depending on how much I have to get through. And then I'll reserve another time just right before I close up for the day to double check and see if anyone got back to me or if there's anything else that came throughout that latter part of the day that I, want to touch on. And then I know, well, I'm not going to be checking this until tomorrow afternoon. So I just set that precedent for myself. But that is so, so important to do because, again, those little notifications and distractions, that's what they are. They're distractions, and they're going to interrupt your flow of brilliance if you let that happen. So that's where the boundaries are so important to put in place at the onset. And then, like I said, the planning part is ultimately what I do before I get into any day or before I get into any part of the week. And I think it's super important to plan just before you commit to anything. So usually on Sunday evenings is when I sit down, I open up my Google Calendar, I start blocking off what am I doing during my maker time on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and I start blocking those spots off. And then I also kind of just review what I have going on in the afternoon with my one-to-one client work, as well as any podcast interviews or anything like that that's going to come up. And then I'll make sure that I just prioritize tasks throughout my week so that I can handle anything that is coming up. Or maybe I'll look ahead a couple weeks to see, okay, are there podcast interviews that I want to prep for this week, or even just solo episodes I need to record that I want to start prepping for this week. So all of that stuff gets done before I get into the week. And then I just always leave space. I always leave buffers. And buffers are super important for you to, again, make sure that you're managing your energy, having planned downtime on your calendar, but also places where if you didn't get to it today, you can move it into tomorrow. But then the buffers when it comes to your manager time are also super important to make sure that you have time to prepare and decompress from any sort of client calls, from any sort of sales calls, from any sort of podcast interviews, or any type of person-to-person contact that you're having. And I think that's the coolest part. Maybe not the coolest part, but that's a really powerful thing that you get to do and have ownership of when you are your own boss, is you can plan in that buffer time, especially if you know your personality type. I am more introverted. And so that one-to-one connection, even though I thrive on it in the moment, it can also be exhausting for me after the fact, or even leading up and planning for it. And so I make sure that I put in my calendar the things that are going to support me most, knowing myself. And that's just the best part to go about it. So that's pretty much everything, or everything to share to make sure that this podcast episode isn't extremely long, but that's how you do it. And ultimately for me, in learning how to do this from abroad, it was really just about understanding that when I choose to open up my calendar, my clients will fall in line with that. And yes, I had to get flexible when I was working strictly with individuals who had 9-to-5 jobs. I did have to get flexible. And what I did with my calendar, which I actually really enjoyed, was I would just open up my Sunday afternoons to take on clients who really couldn't make it during the week. And then I would take off Friday afternoons. Now I don't take off Sunday, or I don't work Sunday afternoons, and instead I do work Friday afternoons, but I really just got flexible with it. And also to those of you who do have a full-time job and you're planning on and thinking about doing money coaching, I also want you to know that this is all so doable. And I want to remind you that whatever time you give yourself to get something done, you will fill that time. And so because this is my full-time job, I fill it. I fill the time that I have. If I wanted to work less hours, which in a lot of ways I do, I don't work a full 40-hour work week. I can admit that. And even when I was solely focused on money coaching, I absolutely wasn't working a full 40-hour work week. And I was still able to work with my clients, get paid a full-time income for part-time work. And it was phenomenal. And it still is phenomenal. I've just chosen to do a pivot to support you all in learning how you can absolutely do this for yourself as well. So if this is something that you want to do and you are inspired or motivated to see that it is absolutely possible for you, it just depends on how you choose to manage your energy and therefore manage your time. You can absolutely do it. Again, if you are working full time, you have nights, you have mornings, and you have weekends, and all of this can fit in perfectly with your nights and weekends and mornings or lunch hours, however you're committed to getting your money coaching business off the ground. And then if you ultimately want to take it into a full-time thing, that is absolutely doable as well. So I would love to chat with you if this is something that you're interested in, or you're in the process of doing, but you're holding yourself back a little bit in fear of it not being scalable or sustainable, or facing potential burnout. You're wondering how to balance this with your full-time job, or this is your full-time job and you're just like, I need to make some money now. Then let's jump on a phone call. So you can head to wanderwealthy.com/apply to check out the Wealthy Coach Blueprint. I walk you through who it is for, who it's not for. You can identify if this is the right next step for you to take. I know it is. And then you can go through the application and book a strategy session with me, and we can talk about time management. We can talk about what you foresee for yourself in the future, how we can make that happen, and we'll see if you are a good fit for the Wealthy Coach Blueprint. So wanderwealthy.com/apply. I cannot wait to see how you enact your maker manager time into your schedule, how you choose to theme your days and how you build your thriving coaching business. Until next time, I hope you wander wealthy.